And hello everybody, welcome back to the channel guys. It's the day after, of course, the horrific attack outside the synagogue in Manchester, which we've seen two people killed and of course the attacker shot dead by alarmed police. It's of course a confirmed terror attack, but the aftermath in this is quite frankly disgusting on many accounts. Not only the government, but also we're seeing of course protests, massive protests erupting over last night, whether it be in London, Manchester, where the attack occurred, Leeds, other major cities throughout the United Kingdom, of these pro-Palestine rallies that are still spreading anti-Semitism and anti-Jew hatred in these marches, especially on the day that the attack happened. Now, Shabana Mahmood has come out and condemned the attack. She's come out and condemned these protests. However, she is complicit in this. She is an individual that for a long time has been going to pro-Hamas rallies. She has been there all of the time, and she has been a part of the government that have of course recognized Palestine as a state and gave victory, I quote, to Hamas themselves. In today's live stream, we're going to be going through the reaction. We're going to be going through what people are saying with regard to Shabana Mahmood online. We're going to be going through some of her interviews. We're also going to be taking a look at some of the disgraceful scenes that we've been seeing up and down the country after this attack occurred. And by the way, let me just show you this quickly, and let's see if Sadiq Khan and let's see if Keir Starmer comes out and condemns these individuals like they did with the Unite the Kingdom rally. As always, guys, before we do get into today's live stream, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and get involved in the live chat. Let's go through this. I mean, look, we're going to get to some video footage in a moment of some of the scenes yesterday, of course, following this attack. But simply, here you go. Metropolitan Police. A protest organised by the Global Movement for Gaza UK took place in Whitehall this evening. Officers imposed their Public Order Act conditions on the protest to keep roads open and prevent serious disruption. Regrettably, a significant number of those present were intent on breaching the conditions, leading to clashes with officers who moved on to enforce them. 40 people have been arrested. 6 of those were for assaults on police officers. While the majority were breaching conditions, the protest has now dispersed and Whitehall has returned to normal. Officers remain in the area to deal with any further incidents. So we're going to see some of these scenes, and in Whitehall there was nowhere near the amount of numbers in terms of when you want to compare it to the Unite the Kingdom rally. However, after it, we had 26 arrests out of the 150,000. I still think there was more people there, but 150,000. And all we heard in the days afterwards was condemn from Sadiq Khan, Keir Starmer, and everyone in the political establishment on this and branding it a far-right racist rally. Now, we've seen 40 people be arrested, and 6 of those arrests were for assaults on police officers. And still, I've not seen any comments from Sadiq Khan this morning. I've not seen any from Keir Starmer either. Let's have a look at some of these horrific, disgusting scenes where actually we're seeing these protesters on the day of the attack actually come out and, again, sing anti-Jew hatred songs. Have a watch of this. The government have enabled this. They've allowed these hatred marches to continue when they're shouting all of this. And this is what has led to this anti-Semitism and, of course, this attack. They make out, you're going to hear Shabana Mahmood say that the attacker is, you should just judge the attacker on the attacker, which I do see to a certain extent. However, the government have, of course, been complicit in this. And Shabana Mahmood is one of these individuals that have been attending these rallies for many, many years. Now, let's hear her from the actual scene talk about the attack as she sort of condemns it as Home Secretary, as they should. Have a watch.
Horrified by the anti-Semitic attack, terrorist attack at a synagogue on the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. My prayers are with the victims and the families of all of those who are murdered here today. I want to thank the police and all of the emergency services for the speed of their response and also for their considerable bravery. The government has stepped up security at synagogues across the whole of the country, and we will do whatever is required to keep our Jewish community safe. I know that there are many questions that are still to be answered, and rest assured they will be answered as quickly as possible. It will just take a little time for us to establish exactly what has happened here, but we will share more information as soon as we are able to. What I do want to say is, to those who seek to divide us, they will fail. Thank you.
On behalf of everybody in Greater Manchester, I would like to thank the Home Secretary for coming here.
Right, I don't care what Andy Burnham is saying, but she's done the rounds this morning as well, talking about this, and we're going to get over to X in a moment and see some of the reaction, but I just want to look through and watch this Good Morning Britain clip as well, where she sort of condemns them to say that you're doing it at the wrong time. What you're hearing at these protests and at these video footage is assaults on police officers at a record amount, far more than what we're seeing, of course, in United Kingdom rallies. And I don't want to make it this, that, or the other, but they made it about that. But also the government are complicit in this. They are absolutely complicit in this because they have been ignoring this hatred on the streets of the UK for far too long. They really have. We see it week in, week out. We've heard it. We've seen it with Bob Villan calling for death of Jews and all of these kind of things at festivals within our country, but nothing is done about it. And they're saying that, well, we're going to be heightening protection for the Jewish community now. Yeah, reactionary-based things. Reactionary-based things. It's been coming for a very, very long time. Let's see what she said about this on GMB. Good Morning Britain.
Cited, and others have on our programme this morning, pro-Palestinian demonstrations and protests. Freedom of speech is vitally important. We know that the sympathy for the horrors in Gaza is vitally important, but he pointed particularly to the ones in Manchester and London last night, which had a slightly different take. We know they were involved in, Greta Thunberg and the release of that. But he said that there, the language that was used, the banners that were held up, is, you cannot be surprised, were his words, that this sort of thing happens when those are taking place, and he wanted us to put that to you.
Well, look, I was so disappointed to see protests go ahead last night. I think that behaviour is fundamentally un-British. I think that people could have stepped back to show some solidarity and, frankly, some kindness to people that have suffered such devastating loss. People are grieving today and yesterday and will be in the days to come. And a little kindness, I think, could have gone a very long way. I'm very clear that whilst, yes, freedom of speech and freedom of protest are precious freedoms that all of us have in this country. Just because you have a freedom doesn't mean to say you have to use it at every moment. And stepping back and just giving people the chance to process what has happened, a chance to grieve, I think in these circumstances would have been the best of British response that we would have hoped for. But those protests did go ahead. The police were present. They did make arrests. And those who break our law will face the full force of the law.
But Shabana Mahmood, there'll be some people on those protests who will say that they were there simply, and the only reason was to support people in Gaza and to protest against the interception of the flotilla that's on its way to Gaza. Dov Foreman was talking about some of the protests that have taken place over the last 2 years, and he was talking about slogans that we hear, whether it's River to the Sea or references to the Intifada. Now, I know there's lots of misinterpretations about those terms. But you yourself, in years gone by, have been on pro-Palestinian marches and protests. We've seen that as Muslims, British Muslims. You were one of the key figures at those marches. But you can't be responsible for everybody on those marches, can you? Or not? I mean, you were on those marches back then. Should you have not taken part in those marches? Because in those marches, there may well have been some people who said things that were anti-Semitic at the time.
Well, I think that individuals have to take responsibility for their own actions, and there will be people who go on marches and behave in a perfectly lawful and legitimate way. It might involve, differences of political opinion about things that happen in the Middle East and around the world, but legitimate, lawful protest is a part of our freedoms here in Britain. That is entirely separate from those individuals who go on protests and engage in other activity that is designed to incite racial hatred and to incite violence. We have strong laws in order to prevent that behaviour, and where those laws are broken, I would expect to see the police make arrests, the prosecution to pursue cases, and for the criminal justice system to provide a measure of justice when our laws are broken. They will face the full force of the law. I don't think we should conflate the behaviour of some individuals as the behaviour of all individuals. But what I would say to people who are currently thinking about going on a protest, the issues that you're protesting about have been around for a while. Sadly, they're not likely to come to an end in the next few days. Just take a step back. Imagine it was you that has suffered this devastating loss, and just give a bit of time with some kindness to a community so that they can grieve and process what has happened. Nothing will be lost, no freedom will be lost if there is a delay and a pause whilst people are allowed to grieve.
So there's a lot to dissect from her wording there. The disappointment of people going on a march. She also spoke about it not being everybody, and she can't take account for all the individuals on a protest. She also stresses the freedom of protest, and you can do what you want. Now, a lot of these things that I've seen, these protests, it's full of anti-Semitism. It's calling for the killings of Jews. It's killing for the killing of IDF soldiers. It's killing for the destruction and the end of Jewish people, and that's the majority of people there, and you can see it from the video footage. You don't have to be that smart to see it from the video footage. But she speaks, I just love the double standard in our country. They're saying, well, you can't a minute amount of people. All I heard after the 150,000 people that came to London for the United Kingdom march is that every single individual essentially there was there for a racist ideology and looking to divide all of us. Every single individual that sings those songs at the pro-Palestine, even pro-Palestine at this point, it's pro-Hamas at this point, are, encouraging a terrorist organization and are not shying away from it. But when she speaks about that, you say, well, there's only a fine minute of people that are doing that. No, it's the majority of that protest. And for a very long time, the establishment in the United Kingdom have ignored far-left terrorism and far-left extremism. And they are far-left terrorists and far-left extremists. And when they're calling for this hatred. Now, just imagine this. Picture this. And I don't like to make it about one thing or the other, but again, you've got to call out these double standards. Okay. An attack happened at a mosque. The very next day, and a Unite the Kingdom rally essentially went ahead. Imagine the demonization of the whole of the establishment. We begin statement after statement saying that every individual there is seeking to divide us, and every individual there is completely racist and have a bigot and all of these. However, when it comes to this situation, it's completely ignored. Oh, it's just a minute amount of people that are actually engaging in this sort of stuff. And to say that she's disappointed, have you seen the scenes? at majority of the cities. It's not just one protest in Whitehall. Yes, these are where the assaults were happening, but up and down the country, throughout stations, it was almost a celebrating that this attack happened. And yes, you can say, well, it was about Greta Thunberg and all of these things. No, but why? But the songs they're chanting aren't about Greta Thunberg. They're simply calling the anti-Semitic and calling for the death of Jews in these protests. Now let's get over to X. Of course, Shabana is getting absolutely riddled online for her comments. We've got some more video footage to go through with you as well on Shabana Mahmood, but certainly, a massive double standard at play here, and the government are complicit in this attack. They really are. They are complicit. Now, that's not to say that they're responsible for the attacker, but they've allowed these hate marches to go on unnoticed for a very, very long time. This is her. This is Shabana Mahmood. As the guy in the interview said, she has been a present, a key figure that has attended these marches. She's been going there for years. And now she's in a position as a Home Secretary. She'll say, well, she can't go to these protests. But don't conflate what her views and ideologies actually are. As this man here says, this is the Home Secretary who says Islam is the driver of everything in her life. Guys, read the Quran and what it says about Jewish people. She attended multiple pro-Hamas marches and supported boycotts of Israel. She is an insult to Jews and this country. Now she's standing in that very position and talking about it. Let's see what she says here, shall we?
Blaming Sir Keir Starmer for failing to curb a toxic wave of anti-Semitism in Britain. Others saying that this is a consequence to recognising the state of Palestine, that emboldens people who wish to cause harm to the Jewish community. What do you say to that?
Well, firstly, we will not tolerate anti-Semitism in our country. It is utterly wrong. I condemn all acts of anti-Semitism.
Bullshit. What do you mean you condemn it entirely? You see it on a week-to-week basis. You literally do it with the Unite the Kingdom rally. You straight after said you can't everybody, saying that these people are racist and far right. You see it. You can see video footage. We're going to go through video footage in a moment. You can hear it. How you have been ignoring it.
Anti-Semitism.
Well, there's hateful speech at these pro-Palestine marches.
If you would just let me finish, I think that we have to separate out two different things here. The only person responsible for this devastating attack is the attacker himself. He is the one who bears the responsibility for what has happened. He has been shot dead. There are other arrests that have been made, and the due process of law and our criminal justice system must now take its course. That is separate to what is happening over in the Middle East, and the one thing that this government has been working hard for every single day since coming into office is to fight for a peace process and a peaceful resolution, a ceasefire, and the long-term peace process that we need to bring peace to the people of Israel as well to the people of Palestine.
No, you haven't. You've rewarded a terrorist organisation that literally came out on the day and said that we've won. We've completely won. And they're still going. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, by the way, there's two other people that have been arrested here. If the only person responsible for this attack is the attacker himself, why have they arrested other people? They can't label far right as one organised unit that is responsible for all of the actions of the far right, and then say Islamic extremist is an individual and entirely responsible for his own actions. Choose a lane. Now, this is the frustration that you see in real time with the government. And I don't like to keep on bringing it back because we've seen a loss of life here and a horrific terror attack. But you need to call this kind of stuff out because it's what's happening on a day-to-day basis. The double standards that we're hearing from the mouthpieces in the government. And Shabana Mahmood, this is her.
I'm just here. It's Saturday afternoon. A peaceful protest outside of a Sainsbury's store here in central Birmingham. And it's 3:30 and the store has actually just shut as a result of the peaceful protest. That's about 4.5 hours worth of business that Sainsbury's is losing for supporting goods from the Israeli settlements which are illegal under international law. So we're calling on Sainsbury's and all other stores to trade settlement goods that they stop doing so that they do not support people who have broken international law. There's a huge response today just here in central Birmingham. It's incredible to see, and the passion here of all of the people campaigning is incredible to see.
So yeah, that's her, by the way. And you spoke about, you know, they were there protesting to against Israel. They were anti-Israel. That's why they were there. They were trying to stop them from doing trade. Now, this is it. This is literally it. Globalize the Intifada. She is the Home Secretary now. She has those views. She just can't talk about them. She can't. Shabana Mahmood surprised that the Manchester attacker's name was Jihad. As a Muslim, I have never heard someone being called Jihad, but it's the name he was born with, and that's always been his name. A child called Jihad welcomed into the UK. What was the Home Office thinking? Exactly. Who's called fucking Jihad? Let's be honest. Who's called Jihad? Jihad. From Syria. Just stop importing these individuals in. Yeah, I suppose I've never heard someone call. There you go.
Been translated to struggle of the Syrian. What do the authorities take from that name?
Oh, well, I mean, I was very surprised to discover that name myself. Actually, as a Muslim, I've never heard someone being called Jihad, but it is the name that he was born with. That has always been his name. He was not somebody
that's not a to use it. That's not a nom de guerre, as they would say in France. That is what the man has always been as a child who grew up with this name to become the adult that took the attack. Is that right?
It is my understanding that is the name he was born with. It is not a name that was adopted later in life or changed recently. That is his name from birth, and it is certainly the name that we have on the records that we have for him.
Attacker has been named.
Interesting. We can keep on going about this. Look. Now she's talking about
country, but what I would say to people that are planning to go on a protest is just to take a step back for a minute. Imagine if you had lost a loved one to a terror attack in this country, and just because you have a freedom doesn't mean to say you have to use it all the time. Sometimes a little unity, a little solidarity, some love and friendship to other people is required. I was very disappointed that those protests went ahead last night. 40 arrests were made, including for assaulting police officers. We will not tolerate that behaviour. Those individuals will face the full force of the law. And I do think that carrying on in this way does feel un-British. Feels wrong, and I would ask people who are thinking about going on protest this weekend, take a step back, imagine it was you, and then just give this community a chance to grieve and to process what has happened.
Well, the truth is they don't care. You know, they take a step back. Not the same condemnation as she generates for the United Kingdom marches. Yeah, take a step back. Have a think. So next week, carry on with your anti-Semitism. Carry on with calling for the death of Jews. But just next week. Just do it next week, is essentially what she's saying. Just take a step back this week. Take the weekend off. That's all. We don't condemn you what you actually do on these marches. We don't condemn what you say on these marches. Just simply take the weekend off. Okay? Have a weekend off, and that's it. And come back Monday strong, refreshed, and ready to go. So don't condemn what they say. They don't condemn anything that they say at these marches. What we're hearing them say. They don't say, there's no problem with what they're saying. There's no problem with what they're doing. It's just take the weekend off. Disappointed. No, the terminology should be disgusted. And again, we've got an individual here who's completely complicit. And to be fair, if I was a part of the Jewish community living in the United Kingdom, I would be offended by the fact that she was even coming out and speaking at the scene when we're seeing this sort of shit. Keir Starmer, of course, at synagogues as well, paying his respect. He just recognised Palestine as a state, gave victory to Hamas recently. Disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Now, we could see some more of these protests that have happened. Of course, we can keep on going through what she's been saying, but again, I don't want to. It's all just take a step back shit. It's all just take a step back. It's un-British. It's un-British to do that. Just take a step back. You can carry on with what you're doing next week. On Monday. Call it out for what it is. If you don't want there to be a double standard, call it out for what it is. But no, she loves this. She has been a supporter of this for many, many times. Disgusting. Let's have a little look at some of the pro-Palestine protests yesterday. protest. I mean, this is what was happening yesterday. Look, I've got to be careful what I show on here because of the violence, but look at the state of that. And that's funny though. Tomorrow's headline: far-right infiltrate pro-Palestine protest. Campaigners take to the streets across the UK on the day two Jewish worshippers killed at a Manchester synagogue. They know exactly what they're doing here. They know exactly what they're doing. Look at the state of it. And I don't even want to give them airtime with the voices that they're saying. This is in London. This is in Manchester, the same city it happened. And at the start of the video, you've seen what they were saying. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. But guys, I want to get your reaction quickly down there in the old comment section below. Let's have a little look in the live chat, see what people are saying. But yeah, do let me know your thoughts on Shabana Mahmood and the way that the government have went around this whole situation. Disgusting. Gaslighting indeed. Let's have a look. Leah says, most of them don't know what exactly they're protesting for. No, well, it's the new fancy thing, because if they cared so much about genocide, which, again, I've came out here on this channel many, many times. I'm not a Zionist at all. I'm not pro-Israel at all as a person. And that's just my personal opinion. I'm very much a person that's Britain first, but I do see two sides of the coin. Whatever, that's my opinion. I do see two sides of the thing, and I think that starvation and what's happening with the children in Gaza needs to stop. It does, but at the same time, Israel has the right to defend itself, and Israel also has the right to take out terrorist organizations that inflicted terror on their nation. They've also got hostages that currently live under Gaza City, that their own Israeli people, on what we've seen from October 7th and the massacre that happened on that day. They have the right to retaliate to that. They also have the right to protect themselves. However, we're not going to go into too much on this subject. But what I'm saying is a lot of individuals on these marches literally get snippets of information and then go, this is this, this is that, and then they just take their sort of thing. It's sort of brainwashing as to what, and they actually find themselves protesting for a terrorist organization. I always like when the confused lot come out with the LGBTQ flag and the Palestine flag hand in hand, like that, as if those two flags are complicit. They're like two flags that are complicit. It's like, dude, do you even know what's going to happen to you if you went out there? It's really quite funny. But the reason why I know that it's simply a fashionable statement at some points, with regard to these protests, and a lot of them will be passionate about what they're protesting about, but a lot of them won't even know what's going on. Because if they really cared about genocide, they would look at what's happening to all of the Christians in Africa at this moment in time, which is probably far worse when we're talking about a genocide. We're talking about genocide in real time in Africa. None of these individuals, not one person, protest against the genocide that is actually happening in real time in Africa right now. So yes, the nerve of these people. The eBay off-roader says the marches aren't protests, they're celebrations. Exactly. Now, I understand people protesting for what they want to protest about. But this, don't make no mistake, this was celebrating. This was celebrating what was happening. Why would they go straight to Manchester? We've seen them all party mode. They are fucking freaks. They are weirdos. A lot of them are weirdos. They are freaks. They really are. And this is what I'm saying about left-wing terrorism. They have no heart. We've spoke a lot about things with regard to left-wing propaganda. We've talked about it in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk, the way that they react to someone being shot and killed. They have no compassion. They're so brainwashed by their own ideology, and it's a form of terrorism. Islamist terrorism hasn't necessarily been ignored, but it's certainly been massaged differently. But left-wing terrorism and the individuals that are going to these marches and the dark hearts that they have is vile, is disgusting, and they'll sit and tell you that you're racist, and you have hatred in your heart, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi. They truly are the Nazis. They truly are filled with hatred. Just look how they react in a time of death or an individual human being being killed. They react in that way. They're sick and disgusting. And again, the UK government is complicit. They've rewarded the loudest voices because they don't make the majority of this country. They don't make the majority. They're just simply the loudest. And again, because their political values lean and side with the left always give in to what they want and what they need. And I would like to say and sit here and say that actually they are just, we talk about, and I see a lot of comments saying, well, you've let them in. You've let them all in and saying foreigners. Actually, I would, it's actually white British people that are complicit in this with the pro-Palestine marches. They're full of them. Look at them. They're traitors to their own nation and they don't know what they're talking about. They really don't. They need some education. But certainly, it's not just people that have came in through they're not migrants. Yeah, some of them may be migrants at these protests, but look at them. It's limp-wristed, white, middle-aged people that are there. Bristol Uni students, these individuals. I don't know what happens at Bristol University, but as soon as someone goes to Bristol University, they get brainwashed and they start looking like a freaking tramp. I know a few people I went to school with, they were good kids, good lads, played football, play rugby. They go there, they have some weird bobhead haircut, turn up in crusted old suits and stuff like this, and all of a sudden just smoke weed all day and then go to these pro-Palestine marches. I don't know what happens at Bristol University, but it's one of the hotspots for brainwashing for left-wing propaganda. And I've seen it in real time with friends that I went to school with, and they turn into this way. So, yeah, left-wing terrorism is something that the establishment has been ignoring. But make no mistake, it's not just people just talking about, oh, it's Islamists. It's not. This fucking white middle-aged uni students that are white and British that have been brainwashed by this propaganda that are also infiltrating this message and pushing this message. Viper Optics says they used to keep those people in large buildings, heavily medicated and chained to the beds. Now they are protesting. Yeah. No, with these people a long time ago, they would have just been in mental wards. When you're talking about, the ones that want to go around and cut their genitals off and stuff like that, they would have been locked up in some house, in some hospital. But now we're just like normalizing, and now they just roam around the streets and they start pushing their sort of agenda. They're the Democrats. They grew up to be sort of Democrats and left-wing lunatics, and that's why they were in these mental institutions all those years ago. The world was fairly normal when they didn't exist, and they do become these sort of Democrats. And this is the problem. Now, I've got to be careful what I'm saying with mobbing, as essentially at school. You speak to the weird kids. And they used to get mobbed, but I suppose sometimes a little bit of bullying. I never bullied anybody, but sometimes a little bit of bullying on the weird kid is character building and sort of shapes an individual when they're sort of younger at school. But now we've cracked down on this sorts of stuff and taken the piss and having banter at school. These individuals grow up to become the Democrats and these left-wing nutters that we see on a day-to-day basis, and that's just the world that we live in, unfortunately. But yeah, it's crazy. So many retired older people in these protests, especially women. Yeah, you're right. They become. That's what I don't get it. So a lot of them are champagne socialists, and I've always spoke about this, and I think I've repeated it many times before. But actually, these middle-aged white ones that you're talking about that are at these protests, I see them. They reside in Hampstead Heath. For those of you that don't know Hampstead Heath, it's Keir Starmer's constituent in London. Hampstead is the most beautiful place, I would say, in London. Really, really is beautiful. It's a piece of sort of the country and the city combined together. But the house prices are extremely high there. Beautiful houses. A lot of the Arsenal footballers live there. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Now, some of these sort of, we would say in my generation, these boomers, the ones that are at these pro-Palestine protests, they may have woke up, or they may have been brought up in a working class background, but they got onto the top of this sort of property boom and it's in their house, and now they sit on millions. But they still seem to think that they are sort of working class and all this way minded. However, these individuals now spend their days, as they don't need to work anymore, protesting on their little cycle, coming down from Hampstead down to Whitehall with their Palestine flag and going like that, la 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 la. They're champagne freaking socialists. It's a joke. It really is. And they have these left-wing ideologies whilst they're sitting on millions. And when they have these left-wing ideologies and these communist ideologies, you say, well, why didn't you sell your house and get rid of your wealth? Well, no, I won't do that. I won't do that. But yeah. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We've been going for quite a while. We could probably speak about this all day, but quite frankly, Shabana Mahmood is a hypocrite. She's sick and disgusting. I really don't like her thoughts and opinions, and she's just disgusted. But I'll be waiting eagerly for Mr. Sadiq Khan's comments in condemnation of the Metropolitan Police being assaulted. 6 officers assaulted last night, 40 arrests made. I'll be waiting very, very eagerly for Sadiq Khan's condemnation of what went on last night. But again, with Sadiq Khan, the narrative doesn't suit. It doesn't fit, so he isn't going to call out. He just hates the native people, the British people. That's it. He ain't going to be condemning this behaviour from last night. He supports it deep down. He supports it. But thank you for tuning in, troops. Hit like and subscribe. We'll be back live later.